Okay, we are live. Welcome, everybody. Welcome to Pej's Recovery Corner. Today, I have a very special guest. He's my dear friend, Maz Jobrani. Hold on, let me see here. Let me make sure that we are live. Yep, we are. Okay. Let me... Maz, how are you doing today?
I'm good. I keep looking at you. You're so tan. You look like a better looking version of me.
You know what's really funny is I have been told over the years that that I look like you, and sometimes people say I look like Farid Tabrizi. I'm like, you guys just you just couple us all together as the same. If you actually see Maz in person, he's much taller and skinnier than me. But
No,
I guess
there's definitely discrimination against bald people. There was a few years back going up La Cienega Boulevard. There was a little photo store where they took portraits, and they hung a portrait of a black guy, clearly a black African American dude with a goatee and bald. And you don't know how many people would come up to me and go, "I saw your picture on the window of that store," and I go, "Are you kidding me? That guy's black."
Don't worry about Facebook. I'm gonna put it on my phone for you.
For some reason, I'm having a delay, but I think all I heard was a black guy with a goatee. Can you hear me?
What I was saying, yeah, I can hear you. I was saying that the black guy with the goatee, people thought he was me. So people would come up to me and be like, "I saw you on the window of that store." And I was like, "No, he's African American. I am not."
Maybe we won't even go there. Anyway, so I want to real quick just talk about, Maz Jobrani, in case you don't know, I mean, the entire Iranian community knows, and then many others too, is a comedian and actor who is part of the Axis of Evil comedy group. The group appeared on the Comedy Special on Comedy Central. Maz has also appeared in numerous films, television shows, including Better Off Ted. His filmography includes roles in the Interpreter, Friday After Next, Dragonfly, and Jimmy Vestvood. If you don't know, you know.
I'm gonna stop you right. It's very funny. I know when people are reading the Wikipedia, because I don't know who put any of this stuff in there. But the
shit's
funny
not
thing
true.
No, it's fine. But it's funny. The movie Dragonfly, and that always comes up as like he was in this. As soon as I hear Dragonfly, that means it's the Wikipedia, because Dragonfly, I literally had 2 lines in there. 2 lines, and hold on, it was 3 words that made 2 lines, and the 3 words, I was playing a paramedic and I'm wheeling somebody into a hospital, and Kevin Costner's the main surgeon. He runs past me, he goes, what's up with him? And I go, OD, attempted suicide. Boom. 3 lines, and somehow some bozo went on my Wikipedia and has put that in there. And they always say and by the way, Dragonfly wasn't even like a hit; it was a flop. So there's no anyway. I'm an actor. I'm a comedian. Let's move on.
Great comedian at that. And I'll say this: like I grew up. We're about the same age. I think you're 1 year younger than me. So I remember following you when I was still in my addiction. I used to love guys like you, Russell Peters, and just because you guys, the types of jokes you would say, the type of comedy stand-up that you would have, I related to that. Like, I got you. I get that. And I think like a lot of the Iranian community definitely loves and adores you because you speak our language as an Americanized Iranian. You know what I mean? Plus, you know the language too. And so today's show, I really wanted to focus more on addiction and mental health in the Persian community. It runs rampant. I've had my experiences. I'm almost 14 years sober next month.
Congratulations, man. That's beautiful.
Thank you. And you and I met because you were doing some benefits for Siamak, which he's my angel. Siamak used to have a place called New Life Treatment Center. That's where I got sober. I actually met Siamak 5 years before that at a sober living house that he had in Huntington Beach. I wanted nothing to do with him. I still had a lot of mileage. He opened the door and he looked like a little Persian recovery Yoda. He's like, "Hello, how are you doing? Welcome to my house.
Yeah.
We have chores, we have rules, we have regulations. We go to meetings." And I'm like, riveting. What's your name? And he goes,
Yeah.
my name is Sia. I'm like, not interested. And I didn't stay at his house, but I ended up at his front doorstep again 5 years later, 35 years old, as a homeless man. I had nothing going for me, major addiction issues, lots of trauma. And this time I was ready. And I remember just looking him in his eyes and I'm like, I know you. And he goes, I don't know you. I'm like, how do you not remember me? I came to your house in Beach Boulevard 5 years ago, and you told me everything about your house, but I didn't stay. He's like, are you ready to come in? And I went in his house, and he gave me the lowdown, and it was like it's what I needed. It's definitely what I needed, and I think I was just ready in my life to actually make a difference. And that man he just showed me a new way of living. So, a few years ago, I know now that his place is called Transforming Lives. And he was doing some benefits at the Irvine Improv, and that's where you and I originally met. And it's been great. What's your experience with addiction and mental health in our community?
Wow, yeah, you're right. It runs rampant. There's so much to uncover. You know what would be great, I think, as I'm saying this, whether it's you or Siamak or somebody from our community should write a book about their experiences and their stories, because I feel, I joke about this on stage. I go, and by the way, America, or a lot of the world, has a hard time dealing with mental health, a harder time dealing with mental health than physical health. Not to say we're healthy physically, but at least physically, you're encouraged to once a year go get a physical, find out how you're doing. You're not encouraged once a year to go get a mental health checkup. We just don't do that.
Right.
And then now take that and put that on steroids, lack of a better example. But and now you've got this immigrant communities in general, whether it's Iranians or Indians or Filipinos. I mean, I think a lot of immigrant communities don't deal with mental health that well. So the joke I used to do on stage was I used to say that in America, they encourage you to go talk to your therapist, tell them your problems, then go tell your family about those problems, and then go on Dr. Phil and tell the world about those problems. And I said, in our community, we're told, you don't have any problems. All you got to do is find a good wife and you'll be fine. And so
that's the answer.
That's the answer. And it's unfortunate because you're right.
And make sure that you go to university and become something.
Yeah, be more miserable in the thing you don't want to do. So I think
exactly.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of addiction. My family has dealt with addiction. My own father. So looking back now, my grandfather from my father's side was an alcoholic. He was a gambler. And I hear stories now from I never met him because he passed away before I was born, but I hear stories of how his gambling addiction would lead. He had like 5 or 6 kids. I forget how many sisters, brothers there were, but it would lead to him losing their money in gambling. And he would come to their home and go, all right, everybody pack up, we're moving. And they would move. And they're from Tabriz. So my dad was from Tabriz. And then my grandfather passes away at a young age. And my father, who was the oldest son, becomes responsible. As you know, that's just what we do. We're a patriarchal society. So you're now the man of the house. So my dad helped raise a lot of his siblings, and he goes to Tehran and he becomes successful in business, and he brings his brothers and sisters all to Tehran, and he helps care for them and sets them up, et cetera, et cetera. But throughout it, my father, being from Tabriz, northern Iran, they were big drinkers of vodka. So he would have friends of his. And back then, I don't think it was an issue. They would drink, they would, drive, they would get in fights with their wives. It was just part of this macho culture. It wasn't a thing at all. It wasn't something to to go, oh my God, I got a problem. Because he was functioning in that, and then, of course, looking back on our experience as a country, as a people, we had the Islamic Republic of Iran, the revolution that happened, turned people's lives upside down. So whether it's in Iran and the darkness that they had to experience all those years of being in war, and not having opportunities, and just having this horrible economic situation, and being young and having nothing to do. Well, what are you going to do? You're going to turn to drugs. Absolutely. Or if it was the Iranians who came to America and the PTSD that they're dealing with, because they've just lost their lives, and they're here and they're trying to learn what's going on. And well, a lot of them would turn to a drink or some taryok or whatever it was to get through it. So, as you know, it's genetic. And so that goes on, and it gets passed down to the next generation, to me and my siblings, and my brother Kashi actually, I don't talk about it much, but he ended up passing away from it. And so that was huge. And that was a struggle that I saw. And I personally sometimes I was lucky that I never got turned on to drugs. Not to say I haven't tried certain things, whether it's weed or ecstasy or something, but that's been it. Like, I've never been interested in pills or like cocaine or heroin. I've never been interested in any of that stuff. I've always enjoyed drinking. And I will say, if you look at it, there was probably times when I drank more destructively than I should have, to the point where you're throwing up. You're in high school, you're throwing up. You're in college, you're throwing up, and you're just not aware of what's going on. And now as an adult, there are times, especially under the pandemic, as the year went on, and there was I'm drinking on a Tuesday, then on a Wednesday, I'm, always like a couple glasses of wine here, a couple glasses of wine there. But knowing the history in my family, I would get, I would be afraid of it. And I would say, okay, I need to stop having drinks now for, a while. So I've tried to be conscious about it. I've tried to talk about it. I love what Siamak does and has done. And that's why I wanted to be a partner with him with those fundraisers. I wanted to help him, A, get more funding for his center, but B, also get more notoriety in the community, because the community needs to realize it's okay to not be okay.
Right.
It's okay to admit that you have this problem. And I think culturally speaking, we are a culture of facades. We are a culture of no, don't tell people this, don't tell people that, don't let people know that we have any problems in our family. Well, every family has problems, if you want. Yeah, if you don't, just look at the Kennedys. I mean, start from the Kennedys, who are supposed to be the most regal family in the world, and just go down. I mean, every family, and that doesn't make you a bad person. This addiction doesn't make you a bad person. Addiction makes you a person, and I think, I'm happy to hear your story, because I think from what I've heard, it's people coming to that point of going, why am I worried about all this bullshit? Why am I worried about all this facades? Why am I worried about what, Fatemeh Khanum or Ali Agha thinks about me? Who cares? This is who I am. And then also realizing that you then have this energy and this ability to then bring goodness to others and bring this openness to others and make them realize, dude, you live once. If you're lucky, you'll live to be, I don't know, 70 80, whatever that age is. And so you want to live, how many of those years do you want to live running and hiding from a community that, in all honesty, doesn't care? And I'm not saying they don't care because they're bad people. They don't care because they're worried about themselves. Everyone's thinking about themselves. So a lot of people, I think, that try to hide their addiction or try to hide their mental health issues. Don't tell anybody that you're depressed. Don't tell anybody that your marriage isn't working out. Don't tell anybody that you're gay. Don't tell anybody that you that you gambled your whole savings. Don't tell anybody. Right. You're thinking like, oh my God, they're going to judge me. Well, no, that Ali Agha is busy thinking about, talking to his boss about getting a raise. And Fatemeh Khanum is busy thinking about Ali Agha, not paying her any attention or whatever it is. Everyone's got their own. No one's got time to think about you. Right. So just, realize that, and then just help yourself.
I love that you talked about writing a book. I am writing a book right now, actually, about my experience being an Iranian boy, born in Germany, raised in America. My minimal experiences that I can remember in Iran when I was younger, but just coming to America and feeling so uncomfortable in my skin. Growing up in Utah, I mean, come on, a Persian kid from Muslim parents amongst just an ocean of Mormonism, right? So I always felt different. So yes, I am definitely doing that, and I believe I love everything that you're saying. I totally I get it. I know that when I went to school to become a drug and alcohol counselor, I did a genogram, and we do we basically check our ancestry, and I realized that addiction did skip a generation in my family. My grandfather on my dad's side was a major teriyaki. I mean, that he loved it, and he died from nicotine in the end, but he loved doing teriyaki. And so my mom and dad, they weren't. My dad drank here and there. My mom never touched anything, but it definitely skipped a generation in our family, because not only did me and somebody else who I'm very close to, I won't say their name right now, fall into addiction and alcoholism, but also even in Iran, cousins that I've never met from the same gene pool, they all became addicts too. And it's good. I'm happy to say that they're all in recovery now. I do want to say that codependency, and it's a lot of, along the lines of what you're talking about, I think that codependency, we are the epitome in our community, especially like Iranian mothers, of codependency. My mom, it's really nice, has broken out of that. She definitely did the work after I went to CMAC's house. She listened to him every step of the way. But I love what I'm seeing more and more of now, as opposed to the last 14 years of being sober, is more Iranian parents that are not of the old way of thinking, like from the old country, are becoming more open to understanding that they are part of the problem too, rather than just not just to focus on their loved one that's the addict or alcoholic. They're actually doing the work. I think some of them are on here today. As a matter of fact, Fatty just he just tapped in right now to say hello to both of us. But I love that I am seeing miracles happen amongst a lot of the family members more recently. I have some sober livings down in Orange County that are highly structured, and right now I've got 10 Iranians in there, and they're mostly Americanized Iranians. Over the years, I've seen Iranians go through Siamak's house that were like old school teriyaki. And when we say teriyaki, that means opiate users that smoke opium straight from the poppy plant, right? But or shita too. But a lot of those guys that were going through Siamak's house were coming off the methadone, and I saw like fucking people for 45 days have these long, drawn out, painful, excruciatingly painful detoxes, to where they would call it simkeshi, because they felt like someone was taking a wire on the bones of their legs. They were going through so much pain. I would literally watch that man put them in a tub with Epsom salt and bathe them just to try to relieve the pain that they were going through. Like, those were the old school opium heads, right? These days, the kids that come into my care are either pill users or straight up heroin and fentanyl. Fentanyl is the motherfucker. Like, that's the one that, Maz, if you saw the shit I see, I have mothers that have sent me video footage and pictures of their kids overdosing or in the process of overdosing, and now they're changing, they're transforming their lives. They've come to our houses, and they are workers amongst workers, humans amongst humans. They're not living in that facade style of living, and they're becoming the human beings that they're meant to be, rather than that facade that they were caught up in. And it's a beautiful thing to witness.
Yeah, man, listen, it's such a challenge, and you're right. The codependency is huge. I think that part of it is, again, being the culture that we are, we try to control everything. Our mothers, our fathers, we always thought, oh, we can control, like even if you think about the way our culture is set up, it's not, whereas the Western culture, if you want to buy a house, you go to the bank, you get a loan. Well, the Persian culture is like, you go ask Amu so-and-so for the money, he'll give it to you. We all take care of each other, and even the point where people will be like, can't you get so-and-so's kid a job? He's, he needs a job. And you're like, oh, okay, I'll get him a job. How is he qualified? No, he's, got addiction. Well, I don't know what to do. Like, we try to control everything, and realizing you can't control everything, no matter how powerful you are. My father in Iran was a very successful businessman, very powerful. He had friends in high places, and he himself was just somebody who helped people as much as he could. And I will always tell the story that his brother, his younger brother was, his younger brother had a family that nobody knew about. It was a secret family. And so he would, because again, the facade you got to keep up, right? So he had a wife and 2 kids. And so what he would do is, like, when he would go off to whatever, manage one of their they had they had electrical plants, like they would run electricity throughout the country.
Mm-hmm.
So when the brother would go to manage this one office or plant somewhere, he would then drive to where his wife and kids were to see them in the middle of the night or whatever. So one time he's driving and he drives off a cliff. And so word gets back to Tehran that your brother, my father's younger brother, has had this accident, and he's basically in a coma in a hospital, wherever it was. And so my dad would tell us the story. He would say his mother, realize my father was the oldest son, and his relationship with his mother was very close. Like, he worshiped his mother. So my dad, at that point in Iran, in the whatever early 70s, late 60s, he charters an airplane. He's going to fly. He's going to get on an airplane, fly to wherever his brother is at a hospital, and go and see what's going on. And my dad says, before I left, my mom, meaning my grandmother, my dad's mom, says to him, he says, whatever you do, says this to my dad, whatever you do, keep my son alive. Don't let my son die. So this is Amu Reza, my uncle Reza. So my dad was like, that was put on my dad's shoulders. So now he is trying to control destiny, right? He's like, I need to keep my younger brother alive. So he gets on the airplane, he flies out there, he gets there, and he goes, people know he's a big shot, whatever. He shows up and he goes, my brother was in his hospital bed. He goes, he was so badly injured, his head looked like a watermelon. It had swollen. And he goes, his fever was rising to whatever, 105, whatever that temperature was. And he said, I went to the doctors. I said, whatever you do, you keep him alive. And he goes, to the point where the doctors were pouring buckets of ice into the bed to bring down the fever. Well, my father succeeded in keeping this brother alive. However, his brother Reza, who was the guy in the accident, led the rest of his life basically. He was like, his face was deformed, his leg, he had like a brace he had to wear always. He was basically handicapped in a bad way, not in a like functioning way. Like, he was just there the rest of his life. And he also was an alcoholic because he had nothing else to do all day. He'd just sit around all day and be like, can I get a drink? And I'm thinking to myself, wow, like, talk about trying to control destiny and realizing you can't. I don't care who you are, Steve Jobs passes away from cancer. He was the richest man in the world. You can't control destiny. And so that codependency, as you say, is something that we have. We feel like, oh, I got this addict. What I'm going to do is I'm going to bring you here. I'm going to give you some soup and you're going to be better. I'm going to give you some love. And you're like, no. Like, what I've learned from my experiences is at a certain point, you got to say, look, I'm here for you and I love you, but I can't do anything until you decide to do something. And so that's where I've tried to get. And I've seen my own mother, actually, like you said, she's gone to programs to help her with that kind of stuff. And, guys like Dr. Holokwi have helped, I think, the whole community, as well as his sons. And then we have people like you, Siamak, and others, Farid, who have also helped. And I mean, I don't know what else we can do. You can just say, we're here. We encourage you to be a part of it. But, until the addict decides to go to, ground themselves and go, okay, I can't keep going like this. And I need the help. And I'm willing to surrender. I'm willing to surrender, because that's the other thing. Our egos, we all have, a lot of times, again, in our culture, Persian culture, man, you're so-and-so's son, you're so-and-so, you should be proud. Exactly. You got this, you got that. That's all total bullshit. Just put it aside and one-on-one.
And that was my biggest fear, was because my dad was a scientist, a food scientist, a microbiologist, virologist. They called him Dr. June. And then, my mom, she did very well for herself too. So I think one of the things that was the shame that I felt the most was the fact that in our community, it's a total taboo, and it's something that I don't want anyone to find out, but it's okay. It's okay for people to for help. So, what was really good about pandemic too is that the community in recovery has come together more than ever, especially in the Iranian community. I have been on a ton of Zoom meetings in Iran with a lot of them and them with us, and we just vibe together. Like they love us. They love us over here. They love that what we're doing, and it's just so nice to see how we were able to bring the community even closer together during this pandemic.
Well, I think our people, as much as I say, we're not as well versed as a community with addiction and being open and honest, I think there's a lot of love. There's a lot of goodness in our community. I mean, I see it all the time when I'm doing shows and people are there to support. And I don't know, there's something, Anthony Bourdain did an episode of Parts Unknown in Iran. And I was surprised to hear him say this, but he goes, I traveled the world and I did not expect that the most hospitable people were going to be in Iran. I wasn't surprised that he said that about our people. I was surprised that Anthony Bourdain didn't know how hospitable we are. And we're warm as a culture. We're warm people. We care for each other. And I think that sometimes plays against what we were talking about, because if you're so warm and you're so caring, sometimes you do want to control the situation. And you got to get to the point where you go, listen, you can be warm and caring, but also try to not be codependent and realize you can't control everything. So yeah, it's an interesting group of people.
When anybody breaks through codependency, it's so freeing. I've seen people really do some extensive work. Siamak and I have joked about this, that somebody will have a major issue. It'll be an addict or an alcoholic that comes into his care. And we come to the agreement that it's not the kid that has the problem. It's the mother. I think the mother needs to go to like rehab for codependence. They should make a rehab for just codependence. But really, like when you take off the codependent wings that are actually self-fulfilling, it's so freeing. And I've been that. You know what I mean? I've definitely been majorly codependent because I just think it was something that was passed down generationally and through our family. So yeah. Well, it's been good to have you on here. I know you had some other things that you wanted to do today. I just wanted to hear from you. I love you very much. It's always good to interact with you. Aren't you back on the road again?
Yeah. First of all, thanks for having me. It's always great to talk to you too. It's beautiful to see your beautiful face, and I'm happy you're doing good as you should, and you're doing your purpose, which is important to remember. I think we all have a purpose that whether you believe in a God or a power or whatever, if you're lucky enough to find it, then you see that person shine. So I'm seeing that, and I'm proud of you for that.
Thank you.
And as for me, I'm going to be touring again. I got my vaccine. I've been double vaccinated, and please get vaccinated, people. Don't believe any of this crap. Just get the vaccine. And so I'm going to be going to Dubai, and I'm going to be going all over the country and doing shows. And, slowly, the clubs are usually at 50%, then they go 75. It'll happen slowly, but it's nice to be back at it.
We're getting back into the mainstream of life. It's happening.
Yeah.
Very good. All right. Well, always good to see you. Have a lovely day. Thanks for coming to the corner, and hope to see you again soon.
Thank you, Pej and Maz. Take care. Bye-bye.
All right.